From the one, Mahomes, end zone. He's got another. 4 on the night. Travis Kelce yet again.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into KCSN Update, your daily dose of news, analysis, and all the Chiefs nuggets that you need here from us here at Kansas City Sports Network. I am Tucker Franklin here, and we go behind enemy lines on Thursdays. I like to do this. We're going behind the enemy lines for the Buffalo Bills. We've got Greg Tompsett of Cover One, a fantastic Buffalo Bills account network, really, to go follow. I really love all of their stuff that they got going there, from their football analysis. They do really good draft content. And they break down the teams all very well. Make sure to go check them out at Cover One. And Greg Tompsett joins us, sits down with us to talk about his 5 things that he's watching for in this game. Really good conversation. Make sure to stick around all the way to the end. And make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you love this content or just really want some more Chiefs news and nuggets. We've got all kinds of stuff for you, from podcasts from former players, film breakdowns, videos like these, and analysis as well from the Kansas City Laboratory. Those guys breaking it down, giving you their game reactions, giving you their game previews. You make sure to check those out. They go live every Monday, every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, Central Daylight Time we're actually in right now, but we'll soon be in Central Standard Time on November the 3rd, I think that is. Weird flex by me for knowing that, but anyway, let's get to the conversation. But before we get to that conversation, I've got to tell you about our presenting sponsor here at KCSN Update, DraftKings, good friend of ours. Love the folks at DraftKings, and as you guys know, the NFL action is in full swing at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. Check this out. In addition to the usual bets you can get at DraftKings, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. I myself get involved in same-game parlays, getting those stepped-up same-game parlays. Had a 10-legger, almost hit, was just missing that Clyde touchdown last week. Almost had a 10-legger hit at plus 440. I got that boosted because of the stepped-up same-game parlays. I love to dabble in those, so I'll probably be doing that. And let's look ahead at the Chiefs matchup here. I've got some good stats nuggets that you're going to want to take into this one. The Buffalo Bills favored by 2.5 points as of now. Chiefs have won 10 of their last 11 home games. So go ahead and hammer that plus 115 money line. Another good stat if you're a Chiefs fan. They've covered the spread in 6 of their last 7 games following a divisional game. Tweeted that one out. That's from our friends at DraftKings. Good stats that they provide here, and some fun facts. Last one I got for you. 5 of the last 6 games between the Bills and Chiefs at Arrowhead have gone over the total points line. Over set at 54 points for this game. Can only imagine it's going to be a high-scoring showdown at Arrowhead. To make things even sweeter at DraftKings, you can throw down on stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Here's what you got to do. Go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, Greg, thanks for hopping on, joining us, thinking about the Buffalo Bills. Couldn't have thought of a better guy to ask and talk about the Buffalo Bills with. First off, how you doing, man? But Bills have been rolling. How you guys been doing over at Cover One?
Good. It's fun, man. Obviously, you guys know it's a lot more fun to cover good football than it is to cover depressingly bad football. So, yeah, this is great. It's been a lot of fun to be able to see the team coming together, finally getting healthy. Got weird there for a minute with like 16 people on the injury list. So, certainly feeling better there. So, everything's coming together because I think what we all deserve this weekend is the showdown with the 2 best teams in football, like we all expect.
We talk about this a lot, too. It's like when the Chiefs week 1 game against the Cardinals were dealing with a lot of injuries, Zach Ertz, J.J. Watt, stuff like that. It's no fun now. Now that the Chiefs are good, it's no fun to see teams have injuries. You don't want to see the Bills have any injuries. And this has turned into quite the budding rivalry with 2 teams that, you know, and in the early 2000s weren't the best. So that's what makes it so fun between these two teams. And if the quick story before we dive into what we're going to talk about, I was on a cruise after the draft, and we met some people from Buffalo. And they're like, oh, I was like, oh yeah, you guys are from Buffalo, and they're like, yeah, we're from Kansas City, and they're like, oh. And they didn't talk to us the rest of the time. So it was one of those things.
Right. Right.
It was fresh, the 13 seconds game, the divisional round was fresh. So I'm curious, Greg, what's the kind of the mood, the attitude in and around Buffalo for this game with like the fans? I know this is a highly anticipated matchup in Kansas City, but I'm curious what the people of Buffalo are kind of feeling.
The same, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a mix because there's obviously anxiety. There's obviously a lot of stress, a huge desire to want to win, but then kind of that weird feeling that both these teams are now in the position where, how much do regular season wins really matter? Like, it's like, okay. So the one piece that I think both teams know really matters is, okay, winning this game doesn't carry any weight. That's not going to matter when the playoffs come. However, winning this game can decide where we play that playoff matchup.
Right.
So I guess it does matter. So like that whole idea of, the Bills won in the regular season last week. That was great. It was a very impressive win. It ultimately didn't matter, so it's that kind of thing where like we're now past the point where they know they can win. So before there was like that hurdle of like, hey, we know we're as good. We know it's possible, but like, hey, I need to see it to like know that, hey, we can really do this. They've kind of cleared that. Now they have that same feeling in the playoffs. Hey, we know we can win in the regular season, but it doesn't really matter until we see it in the playoffs. So I think the big pressure is on our side. We want to see that game be in Orchard Park. We want to see that game be in Buffalo. We want to see that game with our, there's not that many fan bases where we're actually intimidated by the difference of the home field advantage and the crowd noise. And we want that side, we want that choice on our side. So that whole stress adds to, what is, I think it's not a hyperbole to say this is the biggest regular season matchup of the season. It is.
Absolutely. And I think that it's very much the same for Chiefs fans. This matchup has always been circled on the calendar ever since it came out. Chiefs have a historically tough schedule. It doesn't get any easier after playing the Bills. And that's what you get for being the first place team. You got to play first place teams. That's what you got to do. You got to beat the best to be the best. But Greg, I kind of want to ask you, kind of get your thoughts. We've been doing this on Thursdays a couple weeks now, where we get 5 things to watch from people who are really inside of like the other teams. Like I could talk about the Bills all I want, but it won't mean anything because I don't cover the team on a daily basis. So I want to get your 5 things to watch for in this matchup. Let's start with the first thing you got your eye on.
So a lot of them are going to be health related, but it's going to start with, I think, so much time and energy and money was invested in this defensive line for Buffalo. Right. We need to see, not that Mahomes and the Chiefs were the sole reason, but you'd be lying to yourself if that's not a huge reason that they say, hey, we know we can go shot for shot with them. We know that we can score with them. We didn't have a guy that could get home and make the play when it really mattered in the end. And, I think that there were, plenty of other things that went into that weird second half with the Chiefs or with the Bengals, but ultimately it didn't hurt that Trey Hendrickson and those guys were getting home and being able to make a difference. So my number one is the domino effect we've seen so far from Von Miller, not only his direct impact of getting to the quarterback, but the attention he draws, the presence he's had with the other young defensive linemen, and everything else has rippled through there to, what they've been able to produce from a sack total and pressures and pressure rate and pass rush win rate and all those metrics. Do we see that now in the game that matters? We know KC's, ramped up their offensive line. We've seen a pretty strong presence there. I think there's been some challenges with speed rush, and I'm hopeful that that's what we see, but that's my number one with a bullet.
It's going to be very interesting because Von Miller, man, that guy's just a stud. He's been a thorn in the side of the Chiefs for a long time when he was with the Broncos, but now he goes to the Bills, to another talented defensive line. he might be one of the toughest pass rusher, or the toughest pass rusher, I'll say, that the Chiefs have faced so far. And they've seen some dudes. They've seen Khalil Mack. They've seen Nick Bosa. They saw a couple good guys with Max Crosby had a really good game against the Chiefs. But I think that Von Miller might be the best pass rusher that they're going to see. And I'm excited and nervous to see that matchup all together. The Chiefs did a lot of things to kind of negate Max Crosby in the second half there. I think Justin Watson did it a couple times where he came in. So, Max Crosby had to line up a little bit wider. They, used Jerick McKinnon on them because Jerick McKinnon's a very good pass blocking back. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they negate that and how they do scheme it up, because I'm not sure. Does Vaughn move sides very much, or does he really stay on one side?
He's moved way more than we've seen previously. So they've kind of worked on, one of the challenges has been playing on the left side is also Gregory Rousseau's best side. So they've kind of deferred to, hey, Von, you're the veteran, you're more capable of moving, so we're going to switch you around a little bit more. But every time Rousseau's off the field, Von's over on the left side. And they've even now started, which we hadn't seen at all, they've now started kicking Rousseau in, and they've rushed Miller and Rousseau from the same side with Rousseau at defensive tackle. And that's been like, the length that Rousseau has against a guard has been just gross. It's been really fun to see some of the creativity. And that's what I'm curious about. You talked about, I certainly was watching very intently how they handled the combo of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones and different things like that. The Bills have been trying to do, I'd say, more similar to what we saw in that Eagles Super Bowl run, where it's waves of defensive linemen. Like, hey, we have 9 NFL caliber defensive linemen. We're just going to keep throwing at you. And like, hey, when you get tired of Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, don't worry, we have Jordan Phillips and Tim Settle. And hey, when you're right, when we take Von Miller off, it's not quite as good as him, but AJ Epinesa and Shaq Lawson been doing a nice job. And that when you never have any moment where it's a genuine like rest period, like we can just keep throwing guys at you, then Von Miller on a 50% snap rate in the fourth quarter when the other guy's been going every single play. Now we've really been seeing it. And that's why we're seeing the numbers we are. So I'm curious how they handle it, what ideas they have, what creative things we see, moving guys around. They've moved the defensive ends in a lot in the NASCAR package kind of idea. But we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's another good defensive line. This Chiefs offensive line is going up against. Didn't have a very good first half against the Raiders. Turned it around in the second half. So, Greg, I'm curious. Number 2, what you're looking at here? Maybe matchup, maybe players, health related. What do you got?
Before I get into some of the specific ones, the next one flips right around to the other side. Obviously, it's how does that Chiefs defensive line go against the Bills front line? We're always in this weird position where Josh Allen solves everything. Like he's able to just wave his magic wand. And, once again, every single year you look at the pass rush pressure rate versus how many times he actually gets sacked, and he just makes it okay. And that, don't get me wrong, at some point, am I nervous that that's going to like pay some, costs that add up? At some point, I have a feeling we're headed more towards a Ben Roethlisberger ending than a Tom Brady ending, but I'll deal with that in 15 years. I'll deal with that when the time comes. But he still has limitations. There's still a limit, and that we are much more healthy going in here, but that Dolphins game was the reality. We got to a point where it was a 3rd string center, a 3rd string right guard, and a 3rd string right tackle. And ultimately it was too much. They're just like, even with some of the weapons out there wasn't time to ever take any of the deep shots. And it was he could only do 2-3 steps, get the ball out, 2-3 steps, get the ball out. And it really neutered where the offense was able to go. So one, I'm happy. You guys know Mitch Morse well from Mizzou. You guys know everything that's there. I'm very pleased that he's back, that we have the healthy offensive line. But even with everybody healthy, it's not some amazing offensive line. So certainly curious, what do we see from Chris Jones? What do we see Frank Clark? What do we see with everybody trying to, I was actually a big fan of Saunders coming out in the draft, and some fun guys like that kicking around. So I'm curious. I haven't had a lot of time to see Karlaftis yet, and just the couple of games I've broken down getting ready for this week, certainly impressed with what we've seen so far, and I think kind of similar to the way the Bills used Gregory Rousseau early on, with using the size, using the length, using the power, and then starting to build on some of the technique and some of the pass rush repertoire that comes over time. But some of those things I'm curious, Josh will solve a lot of it, but there's still limitations, and I need to see, can they give him enough time to take some of the shots?
Absolutely. Chiefs dealing with an injury too. Tershawn Horton tore his ACL in that last game. So they're going to be down a defensive lineman. Called up Taylor Stallworth on Wednesday. Big dude. That's a run stopping dude right there. So you come, you take away kind of a pass rushing interior guy and add a run stopper more or less in there. So on the interior wise, it's looking a little thin when it comes to interior pass rushers. Not shocking. Chris Jones is always going to be an interior pass rusher. But then you're looking at Derek Nottie, Colin Saunders, and now Taylor Stallworth that are all similar. I don't want to say they're the same, but they kind of have similar play styles on that defensive line. And George Karlaftis, high motor guy, got his first sack against the Raiders. And it's really those second, third effort plays that I think George Karlaftis is going to be really good in. And Frank Clark dealing with a stomach issue is out in the second half of that game against the Raiders. He's had chronic stomach issues, but hope to see him healthy back out there. And yeah, that's going to be a big one. That's what we talk about all the time with the Chiefs, is if they can get home, man, their secondary is good enough. As if they can get home, they'll already are a pretty solid defense for how many rookies they got out there. But if they can do that, they'll be top three. So let's talk about your third thing you got your eye on. What are you looking at here, Greg?
So this is the first individual matchup, and it's going to be, do they shadow Snead on Diggs? Do they stay on the side? If Diggs goes into the slot, do they move in with him? I think that we see Gabe Davis back healthy. I think that, whether we kick out to, whether it's Watson, whether it's Fenton, I feel okay about Gabe Davis against either of those guys. I think that they'll need a little bit of help there. It's all, can Snead really help on Diggs without a ton of extra shadow or bracket? Because if you have to use the bracket there, now you're causing problems. And I'm curious, do we see, Belichick was always famous for that. Hey, what if you go the other way? What if you put Snead on Davis and now give Fenton the bracket coverage on Diggs? Because if you're going to bracket anyways, maybe you could just do it with Fenton. So I'm really curious. What are the choices there? I'm encouraged by some of the depth that the Bills have in the receiving core. I think we get Isaiah McKenzie back this week. Khalil Shakir showed out pretty well. I think we get Dawson Knox back, but ultimately I don't love any of those matchups with those guys in the slot. They'll be fine. Like Josh will find them open here or there, but it's not one that I'm looking to like really maximize. And now I don't think that, Knox against Thornhill or Reed is a big, winning matchup for us. So ultimately it comes down to, the Bills have gone at it and said, listen, we don't care if it's Marlon Humphrey. We don't care if it's Xavier Jones. We don't care if it's Jalen Ramsey. Best of luck. We're still going to throw it to Stephon Diggs. So whoever KC throws out there, they don't believe in shutting down Stephon Diggs. If it's one-on-one, they're going to say, yep, we'll bet on our guy and we'll throw it to him anyways. So I'm really curious. How do they go about that? We saw they tilted so far the other way in the playoff game that you obviously saw the crazy Gabe Davis game. So it's really hard for me to guess. Like, I don't think they're going to go quite that far again this game. But it worked on Diggs. Like, Diggs had a really quiet game, and that, Allen said, all right, if you're going to do that, we'll just have to trust the other guy. So I'm curious where they go. And I'm ultimately thinking that they're just going to roll the dice that we can trust one-on-one everywhere else and just give help on the outside. And that, hey, if you guys kill us with Khalil Shakir and Dawson Knox and Isaiah McKenzie, God bless you. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. If I was facing the Bills, it's like, all right, fine. I'm not giving up 98 and 60-yard touchdowns to Gabe Davis. You're going to have to get it somewhere else. So that I'm curious where that goes.
I'm telling you, watching that Steelers Bills game. That's the game we got in Kansas City on the CBS feed, and seeing Gabe Davis catch those long touchdowns triggered some PTSD for some Chiefs fans when it comes to defensive coverage. And then seeing Devontae Adams, who top 2 receiver in the league, if not number 1. Devontae Adams torching Rashad Fenton a couple times, getting loose on some deep balls. There's sometimes there you just like watch that and you're like, I don't know what Rashad Fenton could have done. I mean, that's the best receiver in the league. So going up against another, two great receivers in Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. You're right. I think that matchup, how the Chiefs do cover him, is going to be interesting. How much does Spagnuolo blitz Snead? Snead has been one of their, I think he leads the team in sacks. So like, how much is he going to get? Yeah, right. How much is he going to get blitzed? Probably not a whole lot, because he's going to be needing to cover, Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis. So a great point, great matchup to watch there. So let's get to number 4, Greg. What do you got?
So now we get into some of the other pieces. It's that, just being shockingly reminded of it in the Raiders game on Monday night. That crowd, it's just absurd. Yeah. It's awesome. I respect it. Like, there are so few fan bases that I like put on the tier of the Bills Mafia and Bills fans. And it's awesome to watch Chiefs fans. It's just so cool. So I'm really curious. The Bills haven't had that yet this year. They've had road games, but the road games have been like in LA and in Miami. And like, that's not real. Like, that's not like that. I mean, they had a separate issue on the road in Miami because it was like 120 degrees down on the field. That's a whole separate thing. But like, actual crowd noise and actual, what do you Josh audibles a lot. Like, I'm just curious. Okay, are they going to go hand signals? Are they going to go different models there? He adjusts a ton at the line of scrimmage. So I'm really curious. What are they doing to not lose that versatility and flexibility? Because, especially in critical downs, you get a little you'll get some things in on first down. You'll get some things in early on. They're not going to be, losing their minds every single second, but any critical down, you're not going to be able to hear yourself think. So what are you going to do? And how do you handle that as it goes in? I'm really curious to see how they approach it. And the ability for Josh to adjust at the line of scrimmage has been a big piece of this offense. And I'm curious how he and first time play caller Ken Dorsey handle that coming into this game, because the timing of getting into it, getting the call into his ear early enough before things ratchet all the way up is also critical. So just some of those mechanisms, I'm curious where they go.
Yeah, I think I've saw a lot of people tweet this. So I don't know, on the Monday night game after Carl Jeffers made the roughing the passer call, I don't know if I could have ever heard a crowd chant "refs, you suck" so clearly through a broadcast. Like the upset, the disdain for what was going on in that game came through very clear on the ESPN broadcast. But no, that's what I think. I think Chiefs fans, Bills fans have a respect in that regard of, Bills fans like to get after it. Chiefs fans get after it, and they respect each other in that sense. And yeah, I wish that, that would be one of the road trips that I would kill to go on, is to go to Orchard Park up in Buffalo.
Same thing. I've never seen a game in KC, and I want to do that someday. So
it's just one of those things where I want to jump through a table while it's on fire or something like that. Just do some of the dumbest stuff. You get to tailgate in Kansas City, you get to smell the barbecue, and it's incredible. It's an incredible atmosphere. So all right, Greg, last thing, what are you looking at for this game?
I think it's I am not one who put everything on at the foot of the coaches with the 13 seconds. Of course they played a part in that, but the players did too. Like, it was so execution. There was a weird communication issue. We at Cover One, we have some connections around there, and the team has been very, very good. They're not throwing anybody under the bus, but there's a reason that the special teams coordinator resigned the next day and all of a sudden works in Jacksonville. So there's a lot of different things that went on there that I don't think were as simple as like just boneheaded coaching mistakes. There's a weird communication issue. They called a pop-up kick and that it didn't get to Tyler Bass. And you see guys as they're running down the field on the coverage, when they see it go out of the back of the end zone, you see two of them turn back and put their arms up going like that, because the coverage team knew that it was supposed to be a pop-up kick and a not squib, because they do the pop-up where it lands at like the 5.
Yeah.
And things like that. So, but none of that matters unless we see flawless coaching execution in these games, that we see really clean time management, that we see really clean clock management and timeout usage, challenges, all those kinds of different things. So ultimately, what I care the most about is don't give more stupid ammo to the conspiracy theory guys and the people, Sean McDermott just passed Marv Levy for the best winning percentage in franchise history. Like, he's not on the freaking hot seat. Settle down. Like, it's the best coach we've had in 30 freaking years. He's really, really good. Settle down. So ultimately, all I care about is don't give more ammo to the yahoos that are out there, and just give me a clean coached game. The same way Andy Reid was a great coach for the 20 years before he was finally able to do it. He just kept giving them time management weird things and ammo until he ultimately, won it. And it's shown that, he really was pretty great that whole time too. But, ultimately it doesn't matter until you pull it off. You keep giving them ammo. So just give me a clean game. Don't give any dumb crap to the yahoos that'll get in my mentions and tell me weird things about McDermott. So that's the final one, is just give me a clean coached game without anything weird.
Of course. Want it to be cleanly officiated as well. I know in Kansas City we are still a little sour about that roughing the passer call, and then also the Raiders getting called for a defensive holding on a field goal is very odd. I can see where it happened, but just calling it is weird.
So both of them were really unnecessary, egregious calls. Like, both of them, I can see someone try to argue with me that the letter of the law, they technically were violations, but neither of those were appropriate to throw a flag. Like, I just don't understand the physics of what Chris Jones is supposed to do. Like, how well it was right on par. Maybe the Grady Jarrett thing was a tiny bit worse. I literally don't you can't bring him to the ground any other way than what he did Tom Brady. And like, hey, if I'm going to tackle you in midair, I can't roll off of you in the middle of the air. Like, I don't know what I'm waiting for a defensive lineman to pick a quarterback up and just look at the referee and be like, are you going to blow the whistle, or do I need to drop him? Like, can you just stop the play? Is that good? So that kind of thing. And then the same thing, that holding thing was weird. I guess technically he was kind of, but that was really ticky tack. So yeah, I would love for, just like the playoff game, that we forgot the refs existed. It was just awesome football back and forth, and the teams decided what was going on. That's all I want. Just don't give either fan base some dumb excuse of why, but if they hadn't, just let the teams decide it. Let them play. Nobody wants to see your zebras run around the field.
Yeah, I agree. I always like it when we don't know that they're there. That's the best part about officials. Same thing with offensive linemen. You don't talk about them. They did good.
Had a great game.
That's the bar that you should hold the officials to. Well, Greg, appreciate you hopping on, talking a little bit of shop with me. Really appreciated our conversation. Let people know where they can find your work at.
Absolutely. Come on over. You can find us on YouTube at just search for Cover One. You can find me on Twitter at Greg Tompsett, or our main handle at Cover One. We love everything you guys do at KC Sports Network. KCSN is very similar to what Cover One is for the Bills. So love what you guys have grown into in his independent network, and we're doing the same kind of things with Buffalo. So all kinds of things going on, a lot of excitement of what's out there. And, ultimately, this is the kind of thing where I look forward to talking to you guys for 15 more years. This is just going to be, we grew up with Brady and Manning and all the different things back and forth. And that's what Pat and Josh are going to be, man. It's going to be just fun, awesome football for a decade back and forth. And, obviously I hope we start taking a couple more of them here, but I don't think either side's going to dominate this. It's going to be two great teams back and forth, taking shots and throwing haymakers. And that's what makes football great.
It is. Well, Greg, thank you for hopping on. Listen, I got to say, if you're just a football fan, go follow Cover One. I like to watch your guys' stuff, just football breakdown wise. Doesn't have to, take the Bills out of it. I know Chiefs fans kind of have some animosity towards the Bills. It's a rivalry now. Take the Bills stuff out of it. It's good football breakdown. If you're a football guy or a football guy's guy, you're going to like to go and hang out and listen to
Yeah, especially draft time, things like that, everything like that. Really good coverage across the board.
Yes. So, Greg, once again, thank you for hopping on. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video on our YouTube channel if you enjoy the content. And we'll always be back with another daily YouTube video. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and review if you feel so inclined. We really appreciate it. So, tomorrow, BJ Kissel will be back with Trevor Sikkema. They're going to be going over the 3 key matchups to watch in this game. I'll be back next Thursday to get you ready for next week's game. So, until then, I'll talk to you later.